Kurohyou is a Japanese and PXP exclusive spin-off duology of the Lucky Dragon series, where you play as Ukyo Tatsuya. Just like how Lucky Dragon Zero, The Promised Land, has the youngest iteration of Kiryu with 4 fighting styles, Black Panther Lucky Dragon New Chapters Tatsuya is the youngest protagonist of the series, who has 20 fighting styles, or 64 technically if you want to count each individual levels. But let's take all of that and put them in the trash, as I am to figure out, can you beat Kurohyou, Ryuga Gotoku Shinjo, without styles? I'm gonna be playing on New Game Plus to access Extreme Hard or Legend difficulty, with the rules explained along the way. We get introduced to our trio, Tatsuya, Tenma, and Yusuke, him being the only one to not have a title introduction, so he never appears again and is already outside of flashbacks. Alright, so since I'm at max level with 50 stats across the board, except stamina, the most important one, I'm gonna be applying additional rules in this particular run because of my overabundance of bonuses, which are to not upgrade my stats, banning equipments, alongside limiting the healing items to the lower tiers. For the actual rules of this challenge, I'll need to use the level 1 street fighting style because it doesn't give any bonuses. Regular punches, kicks, throws, first and third tier hit actions aren't allowed since they differ with every fighting style. So how can I attack? Well, it's gonna be demonstrated in this tutorial that I'll skip, as I still have the strongest tool in the game, that being evasion strikes, as the animation stays the same across the stack of fighting styles. I can also use weapons, but they don't really appear much. We're then given an ice cream coupon and proceed to the second half of the tutorial. Another method of attacking is that I can also use death blows, aka charge attacks. Once that's done, I try to redeem the coupon, but it's expired, and just like Peter Griffin to earn a giant chicken, violence and laughter ensues. We then run away before the police can arrest us for making a terrible reference, accidentally run into the side plot of the game, and failed due to an input delay, restarting all the way back and failing on the second tutorial due to the same mistake. I swear I'm not throwing for content already. A third reset from the very beginning and I had better success, even going so far to beat up the first and only interview fighter I can actually beat, since you're mandated to fight them using the same style they use. But I'm not gonna turn it in yet and head home instead. To drop off some money, get tased, a supposedly important person in Tatsuya's life gets name dropped and it's never mentioned again. The main big bad gets introduced and we're now blackmailed to fight and win 10 consecutive matches to gain our freedom. But after sightseeing the area and its residents, just like any hot-headed teen would, I bust some skulls and attempt to escape. After a second round and reaching to the iconic Lucky Dragon Gate, I'm faced with the first and frustratingly many escape chases, running diagonally because it kind of feels faster than running in a straight line. Turns out I failed because they planted a tracking device on me, but luckily we got to see the man, the myth, the legend. I struggle a bit here, but after a few perfect evasion strikes to build up some heat, I use the second tier hit action since they stay the same in every style as they use environmental contacts instead, ending the fight in a death blow loop with 5 big shoulder booms. Boom! 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 And getting our Sigma edit. Chapter 2 starts with a nightmare, learning a usual style, get a preview of our next opponent and get invited to lunch in a cabaret crowd despite being underrated by DJ Kurohyou. Before that, I gotta say this now, as I won't be mentioning any street fights, as Kurohyou has one of the highest random encounter rates in the series. It'll just take too long, and the enemies are basically brain dead anyways. I'll only mention some if I fail the challenge. Anyways, I run into some punks from the past with its motley crew of gooners, beating the kids up easily, and get a glimpse of Tatsuya's past, and meet his equivalents to Date. But that doesn't matter for now, as after dinner, we get a scene that showcases Tatsuya's reckless self, and how it's compared to a professional, opting to fight in the ring instead of bringing himself down to a punk's level. A hint of this game's main message. Ooh, interesting. Anyways, in the ring, Hyuga somehow struggle here despite being the easiest boss in the game, albeit that is due to my unoptimized approach, especially so since I started fucking around with the special death blows and failed here. Luckily I saved beforehand, and right after a barrage of evasion strikes, yellow heat, and shoulder boom loops, we then got told that this was barely a win as we fought Hyuga without any real conviction, making it so we didn't really convince the audience of our strengths because we don't have a philosophy like Hyuga does. To put it short, it's basically the meaning and the approach you put in a fight, and Hyuga's philosophy is like a self-imposed challenge run to play a game or win a fight in a certain way to make it more interesting and entertaining, so we aim to search for a philosophy of our own, whatever that means. Chapter 3 starts off with a money dispute, and since we got some spare time, we aim to find a part-time job, but the convenience aren't hiring, so we aim to go for somewhere else. An earlier drink tried to mess with me, and I got hit by an input delay after trying to do a death blow, restarting from the beginning of the chapter because I forgot to save. Knee to the face, then DJ Rikyo appointed us to a part-time job in Club Asia, dealt with some rough crowd, and skipping this risky minigame entirely for you guys. The same dude from before brought his friend and nothing changed, other than getting the second escape chase of the game, meeting with an old teacher and get a flashback of how we used to bully people, and he's also the person that rat us out, to end up in juvie for a year. We then get an early notice of our next fight. Turns out it's our teacher that Yuki arranged himself to get us some character development. He's a pretty dangerous boss with how parry heavy he is, and all my attack options are fairly slow and heavy. I started strong with good back shots here, but I accidentally parry, which is unfortunately also style sensitive. I take my patience here since death blow loops doesn't consistently work, as Yuki's wake up attack has a really long range, but I managed to squeeze it out. Now what's the character development we get from here? Well, Tatsuya learned how strong Yuki is for enduring years of torment and never giving up, realizing that at this point, it pales in comparison to what Yuki had to grit through, learning a tinge of empathy and sympathy. Tips 4 starts off at a cabaret club and some tease of a deep lay in the story. As we attempt to try and investigate, Saki calls us up for an errand. But I head over to Yuki first for a second round to get a useless skill that goes a bit better than the actual boss fight, and it ended in a really nice music sync. I finally have Saki with groceries, run into Takenaka for a third escape chase, boarding a taxi where we get a flashback of what happened. Tatsuya beats up some karate kid, but claims he wasn't the one to break his neck, understandably so. The driver doesn't believe us, especially since he's the father of the kid we beat up, so he dumped us out in rival school to beat up more kids, ending in the first escape chase in the game. Turning to the second worst aspect of the game, being to run around almost aimlessly to get clues for the next mission objective. First you need to talk to these schoolgirls, and they tell you to find a place with food, which isn't helping. So I'm making a nod to the B-side plot of the story by taking down some wannabe gangsters, before continuing to search for clues by beating this guy up, finally getting a quest marker to be told he's all the way over to Club Sega. Turns out he's not here, and you have to help someone win the claw machine to find out that the guy we're looking for has his neck broken. So we get a fifth escape chase, and see Tenma having a suspicious conversation with Takenaka. Finally starting the fourth boss fight, which is the taxi driver guy from earlier, which, once again, Koki arranged like a mastermind for Tatsuya to confront his past grudges and to get more character development. Fortunately, Nobumichi is a lot easier to damage than Yuki, but he is quite aggressive to the point that I get the low health red hue filter. Unfortunately, I had to reset the fight because I accidentally did a running attack. Then I do the usual routine and end with a yellow heat action. Turns out Tatsuya actually didn't break the guy's kid's neck, it was actually his run. So what character development did we get? That's the strength that comes from fighting for the sake of others, especially family. Tatsuya then got so moved by that he decided to visit his sister, leading to a pretty cute awkward interaction and being told to go home for dinner. So I buy some energy drinks and bandages to heal up before actually going home to fight a Chinese loan shark. Then suddenly seeing Toto well and alive, but was conveniently interrupted by Takenaka, getting very inconveniently sprained, but was also conveniently saved by Tenma. Chapter 5 starts with Tatsuya's bad attitude since he hasn't fully absorbed character development yet, blowing Tenma off even though he's clearly back up to a corner. Since we sprained our ankle, we make our way to the infirmary, having Saki treated it, while Tatsuya asks if ferns are electric, then attempt to interrogate Kuki before being told to do an errand again. After delivering it, talking to Kuki resulted in a whole load of nothing, other than cryptic hints of pressure, and our next opponent being a bootleg Minami. Not satisfied with the nothing burger, I head over to Chorako to investigate myself and run into a shifty-eyed man named Nyoka Kozo that sickest goon on me. Dealing with him is easily enough despite the injury. Nyoka laughs at our goal and says to search for the River Asai for Kuki's crime, but I need to find out about Soda's death first, so I talk to this girl. You don't need to do this, but I did it anyway, to find and report more content, as Shiraishi is a mini-boss from the Gang B side quest plot. Then talk to this homeless guy and have to buy a Makonochi bento. During the walk there, I ran into a ruffian and accidentally kick him, resetting to the beginning of the chapter. Second attempt, I success in getting the homeless guy some lunch, but he just points us out to the River Asai again. What's disappointing is that you can't just immediately go to where it is if you know the location via the other Lucky Dragon games. So you need to talk to this guy, then this girl, and finally ask if they sell flowers to see the florist. Essentially, Dragon Hate is a lucrative moneymaker that needs to be very delicately balanced so the other Tojo families won't get jealous. If a family has a representative with more wins, the other competing families will send out tougher and crazier opponents, which is why we're fighting this bootleg Minami. Finally going over to Okay, nearing the Dragon Heat, we see Tenma and follow him to see he's talking about footfinder.com within the Yuga family Gunner. I'll say this now, but boss fights here aren't that difficult. Good like Minami goes none with the usual evasion strike, death blow loops, and the yellow heat actions, so I did manage to give him a nice little snack in the middle of the round. Once the fight is done, Manic Puppy here targeted the wrong foot and lost. Then we dash out to save Tenma from getting the Jewel treatment. Turns out Tenma didn't stall us out and actually redirected the Yuga Gunners into a fake foot finder website, getting their IP address leaked, realizing that friends are electric. Chapter 6 starts with a nice reunion between friends and an immediate escape chase scene. Fucking hell. So Toto's body is found at the forest. We get angry with Kuki as he just gaslights us to feel wrong. Skip over the useless, aimlessly ask around town to end up just asking the florist again. Then get redirected to meet Shaki for more information. This time asking around Pink Street actually does help and she gives us information how there's quite a fair bit of bad blood between Toto and Kuki because the former is stealing money from the family. Then we get a scene of Nyoka scheming with someone. And what's that scheme? Well, Kuki so graciously takes us there to see Hyuga pumped up on steroids. That's right, it's a rematch from our first proper fight against a professional. And I love the dynamic switch here, turning the tide with Hyuga as the reckless brute and Tatsuya being the calm and calculated guy against the situation. And this boss is one of the hardest in the game as he just loves to dodge around and parry you. I also died twice here before somehow squeezing out the dub by playing my usual routine a bit more safely. Now the reason why he's so angry is because he was tricked into thinking his sister will die if he loses, while Chiaki, that's his sister by the way, thought Tatsuya will kill Hyuga in the ring. Then Tatsuya demonstrated his character development by defending Hyuga, saying that he wasn't being himself at the ring because he was blinded by anger, grief, and desperation. Chapter 7 started with us getting blamed for attacking Kuki, introduced to the next boss, then immediately fight two guys, and more due to the moment I stepped out of the building. Now this chapter is definitely where Tatsuya's character development started to show, as he calls up Tenma for help to then gain the help from Takanaka, the person we've been trying to avoid all across the game. To show even more of Tatsuya's character development, he patiently waits for these two to finish their conversation. Anyways, the preceding stuff to find Takanaka is really uneventful, so I just go to karaoke, do third rematch with Hyuga, since he is less angry now after resolving conflict in the previous chapter, so he is slightly easier, at least I didn't die this time. Finally we find out that Takanaka is at the Millennium Tower, and we have to follow him to the Champion District where he and the upcoming boss is mourning for someone. Now I don't really like this plot point, it feels very contrived, or at least in the way that the fan translation subtitles are presenting it, as the word mama is also used in Japan, that also means mother. Anyways, Cho, that's his name, declared immediate victory. And now we switch gear and see what the Lone Wolf Society is all about. So we beat up two members of the gang and found out they're a gang of Chinese immigrants that Cho is the leader of. Also, Tatsuya finally learned that mama means mother. Since Tatsuya's sister works in the Champion District, we head over to ask her for some info. So to cut a long story short, there was a fire in the Champion District years ago that took some lives. We were ambushed and got info how Cho is fighting to uncover his mother's killer. And I have to say, this group fight was decently hard with my restrictions, as they all have fast attacking movesets that can interrupt me pretty easily. Boss fight time finally, and Joe reveals other than wanting to uncover his mother's killer, he also wants to take over Dragon Heat, so I proceed to humble him. Like genuinely humble him, because I explored how bosses tend to run up to you when they enter heat mode. This fight was actually so easy, in fact it's acknowledged in the lore, where Saki and Taizan didn't even bother to stay and watch until the end of the fight because they already know we'll win, establishing that we already have enough character development to just skip this obstacle entirely. Chapter 8 starts with the collection and theory crafting of Toto's murder, Kuki's attack, and the fire is all connected, but since we can't do anything right now, we call up Takanaka for assistance and he does help us by investigating and covering for us. We then run around thinking to ourselves if Saki asks for a date, eating burgers and fries, then grabbing ice cream at the end, running into her ex, and beat him up before he scams another woman. Going back to Saki where she teaches us jujutsu, and head to the Champion District where I beat up a lunatic, talk to 3 people for some backstory to get a clearer story of that fire. It's speculated that the fire was caused by the Tojo clan, and after that incident there was a rumor that someone joined the yakuza after his wife died in that fire. A weird move, but Joe rationalized it, how you might have joined them to tear down the organization from the inside. After that I get a call from Kuki to go to Chouraku, open the store that looks like a dragon. Kuki then tells us his sympathetic backstory. Most importantly is this Washio guy who's in the police that encourages Kuki to go big by arranging 10 consecutive fights to draw out the traitor of the Tojo clan. And most importantly, since Kuki is on his death chair, we can also just go because he deleted the blackmail. we're officially a free man. But since this request is from a dying old man, we're gonna fulfill the promise. So he tells us how Toda has a microchip full of evidence. Then does the dying mid-sentence trope before he could tell us where it is. Now the reason why we're crippled here is because I accidentally skipped over the scene where we got jumped and beat with hammers. Since the cutscenes in this game are all one long motion comic, unlike how the main line Lucky Dragon cutscenes get separated into sections, so important scenes won't get skipped over. Anyways, our boss in this round is a mercenary, a literal criminal that was bailed out of the death penalty by Washio. Huge fucking jump from the last boss, because they're gonna pull out all the stops from here on out. It's such a huge leap that Saki and Taizan does a 180, saying that Tatsuya would die from this, and that isn't even accounting for the various injuries he received from getting beat with hammers earlier. But that's just the lore. In gameplay, Aramaki is actually pretty easy, although he can get decently hard as he likes to parry. But once you get him to the ground, he has the worst wake-up attack, making death blow loops incredibly easy. After this, Tenma confessed that he actually ratted Tatsuya out, which is why he got beat by hammers earlier, since he needed the money to help his parents out. Now if this was Tatsuya in the beginning of the game, Tenma would probably be dead. But since we learned how to see the bigger picture, we aim to track down the blackmailer instead of the victim. Chapter 9 starts with an ominous phone call, and our next opponent is revealed to be the former middleweight boxing world champion, Iron Shima. But I don't have time to worry about that, as Takenaka calls us to have a few words and reveal that his position has been moved and he can't work as efficiently as orders from his supervisor, which is the guy covered in shadows in the opening cutscene. So we have to investigate on our own by breaking into Choraku and discovering this picture of a hostess, since the best place to get information in a crime drama is through bars and cabaret clubs. So she's a hostess in the higher class of a cabaret club in the Millennium Tower, but as soon as I try to head on over, two of Shima's apprentices stop to intervene, wearing black and white jumpsuits, similar to what Tatsuya and Tenma are wearing. Once that's done, Nyoka-sama blocks the path, gun drawn, and we head on over to Dragon Heat, sending Takenaka the photo, the name of the cabaret club inside the Millennium Tower, and apparently the name of the trader being Nogi. But before we freeze Iron Shima, Taizan suggests that we should take advantage of Shima's weakness, that being his retinal detachment, but Tatsuya refuses, saying that he'll stick to what he believes in to finally realize his philosophy. This is portrayed in-game as if we hit Shima's head, he'll get angry, going into heat mode far earlier than intended. This fight also marks another reload in a long while, as I panic tap the buttons. Then on the second round, I actually get serious. Since Shima only throws punches, his attacks are very fast, that it can easily interrupt mine. I also can't use my only high damaging attack, as the yellow heat action damages his head, so I had to endure slowly chipping his head down with running baits and death blow loops. Once the fight is done, Shima asks why we didn't aim for his head, outside of that one example, and our answer is to honor an even fight, as taking the advantage of a crippling weakness from a workaround fighter would undermine the fight, as Tatsuya acknowledges the change he's undergone. Then Shima tweaks out and reveals that the trader Nogi is actually Taizan? He does the beat me and I'll tell you everything speech, but since Saki is gone, we need to go fetch her. She pours her heart out how the two most important people in her life fighting makes her sick. Tatsuya then figures this is the best time for a confession, gets rejected, and asks to find her father figure. After an epic brofist, Taizan whooped my ass, like really whooped my ass. He's incredibly hard. How hard? I had to retry this 22 times, 15 from death, 5 from resetting due to failing the challenge. I tried being cute with special death blows, but that never worked. So I took this very patiently, as the first hit of his attack strings are slow enough to consistently perfect dodge, and that was basically the only consistent way for me to do damage, as death blow loops won't work since he has the front roll rising attack. And this was also the first time I had to use healing items in a fight to finally win, finding out that Taizan is our dad. An important family exposition dump occurs, and finally, almost like expected, Nyoka isn't keeping his end of the bargain, and we have a nice father and son duo fight. Head over to the Millennium Tower, fight more dudes, loot Toda's microchip, and since this is like a dragon game, the final boss is a political figure, or at least the protege of one, and we have to fight atop the Millennium Tower. Now, he might look intimidating, but no, with the bigger arena, it makes the fight significantly easier. But I did have to reload since I accidentally went over to the third heat tier and did a style sensitive hit action. He also just refused to be grabbed, dodging almost every time I do, so I kinda just tease him regularly, as he has a manageable wake up attack, making death blow loops much more viable. So I did have to use healing items since you need to gain a lot of preemptive distance from the first phase of his heat attack. You generally can't outrun this, so I had to play it safe. After that's done, Takenaka and the police force came to aid us since Saki called them before the Shinjo fight. Since I skipped the cutscene early here, nothing else happened and no one died. Anyway, that's that. You can beat Like a Dragon, Black Panther, New Chapter, without styles, and it was not too hard. But the spike in difficulty during the Taizan fight was very much expected. Anyways, this is the end of the video. If you like it, press the like button. If you dislike it, feel free to dislike the video. Be sure to check out the rest of my catalog and subscribe if you wish to keep up. So good evening and bye.